Cleopas and his friend were devastated. They had put all their hope in something, and their hope had been dashed. They had envisioned a bright future for the redemption of their country from foreign occupation, but their country's oppressors had obliterated that future. They had put everything on this man, Jesus, only to see him handed over by their own leaders and crucified by the occupying Romans. What's that like? What's it like to put all your eggs in a single basket only to have your basket crushed and destroyed, leaving you with nothing? It happens, doesn't it? It may be something as simple as a sports team, or a business or financial venture, or a political party or candidate, or something that happens to our children or grandchildren that we did not expect. We hope for the best. We hope for a bright future, for the renewal of the good. We yearn for the return of the good times, only to experience bitter disappointment. The author of Ecclesiastes may speak for us when he writes, "What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun." Eventually, for those of us who are idealists, the disappointment of our highest hopes is the most difficult of all things to bear. There's a painting based on Luke's story. It was painted by Robert Zund in 1877. It is a beautiful painting with a lush green canopy of trees to which three characters talk as they walk the road. You may have seen this painting. The painting reminds me a bit of the Lafayette Heritage Trail, which I frequently walk. But I'm thinking that Cleopas and his friend are not seeing the trees nor anything else of beauty along that road. I'm thinking that they're trudging along, heads down, seeing nothing but the grit and gravel of the road itself. They are devastated. As it happens, a stranger joins them along the way. The stranger is friendly and asks what Cleopas and his friend are talking about. The question stops them cold. How do they answer such a question? Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who does not know the things that have taken place there in these days? What things? That must have sounded to them like, haven't you heard of the destruction and devastation brought by hurricanes to Houston and Florida and Puerto Rico? Only to have him reply, what hurricanes? Seriously? Cleopas explains the things about Jesus of Nazareth, who is a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and leaders handed him over to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Except that we already know the story, the stranger's reply might seem strange to us. Oh, how foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have declared. Now, if you have a friend who's in deep distress, troubled and saddened by how life has turned out, please don't call them foolish. Okay? Promise? But Luke, our storyteller, is up to something else here, besides shaming Cleopas and his friend. The point is, you expected the wrong Messiah. You expected the wrong Messiah. You had hoped for one to redeem Israel. Redeem Israel from what? From Roman occupation? How? By raising an army? By forming a band of guerrilla fighters? By going up against strength with strength, violence with violence, returning evil for evil? Seriously? What did Isaiah say? He was despised and rejected by others, a man of suffering and acquainted with infirmity. And as one from whom others hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him of no account. Surely he has borne our infirmities and carried our diseases. Yet we accounted him stricken, struck down by God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the punishment that made us whole, and by his bruises we are healed. That must have been one fascinating conversation as the three of them walked down that road. Luke, our storyteller, gives us no detail at all of what was said. Don't you hate it when the Bible does that? Finally, Cleopas and his friend reach Emmaus, and the stranger turns to continue down the road. But they urge him to stay with them. Stay with us, because it is almost evening and the day is now nearly over. Okay, for 50 points, what hymn is that? Stay with us, because it is almost evening, the day is nearly over. How about, abide with me, fast falls the eventide. Yeah, hymns don't fall out of the sky, they come from somewhere. That one comes from this line of Scripture. So, he went in to stay with them. When he was at table with them, he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the Scriptures to us?" It is in the breaking of the bread that finally they recognize that it is a risen Jesus who has walked with them, who has opened the Scriptures to them in a new way, in the breaking of the bread. Now, breaking bread could mean simply what it would mean to us. To break bread with somebody is what? It's to eat with them, right? To break bread with somebody. But we know better. We've read the story of Jesus in that upper room, breaking bread with his disciples for a last time and saying, "This bread is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. This cup that is poured out for you, is the new covenant in my blood." For Luke, our storyteller, and for the church throughout the ages since, we encounter the living Jesus at the table when we break the bread. That might be a good place for Luke to end his story, but that's not where Luke ends his story. Luke continues. That same hour, Luke tells us, Cleopas and his friend got up and returned to Jerusalem, and they found the 11 and their companions gathered together. They were saying, "The Lord has risen indeed, and he has appeared to Simon." Then they told what had happened on the road and how he had been made known to them in the breaking of the bread.